What's up, guys? Justin here with the RenderingEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp and Lumion tutorial for you. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to use node replacement to quickly place plants or in the same locations in the SketchUp model inside of Lumion. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so I want to start by saying that Lumion already has a great set of tools for placing trees and objects randomly inside of your models. So if that's something you're trying to do, you don't really need to use this method. I'm talking more about a situation kind of like this one, where you've got a number of different trees already placed inside of your model, and you want to replace those with Lumion trees really quickly inside of Lumion. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's known as node replacement in order to do that. So to start off, model credit for this model, this is The School by Max Achowski. So you can go into the 3D warehouse and kind of follow along. This is a great, really detailed model. I'm kind of excited to see how the finished product is going to look with this. You can download this and follow along. And so I have done some reorganization of the different trees and stuff inside of this model. So this model originally had a whole bunch of like V-Ray proxies and other things like that I've kind of stripped out, and I've kind of simplified this. So I've gone in, and what I've done is inside of the outliner, I've taken all of these trees. So all of these two-dimensional trees, the like billboard trees right here, and I've put them in their own group. So I've taken each tree and I've placed it inside of a group, so each one's in here is an individual object. And so that organization is going to be important, so make sure that you have all of those kind of grouped together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to send this model to Lumion. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use Lumion LiveSync to send this to Lumion. So in order to do that, we're just going to use this extension. We're just going to click the play button. It's going to tell us that Lumion is not running, and we're going to say yes to go ahead and open it up. And then when this opens up, it's going to ask which template file we want to use, and we're just going to use the simple plane right now. So I'm just going to click on plane, and what that's going to do is that's going to drop my model in to Lumion right here. And when I look at this, it looks like this is still below grade, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to use the move function in order to move it up and down. So we want this whole model to be up above grade, so I'm just using the move function in order to move this so that it's above the ground. So now if I look at this building, if I fly around to the other side, we've got kind of our entry right here. So you can see how that has kind of our two-dimensional trees in here. And what we want to do is we want to take these and we want to replace them with full-on 3D trees. But we already have the location figured out. So we don't want to have to worry about coming in here and replacing each set of trees over and over again. What we're going to do instead is we're going to go back into SketchUp and we're going to export what's known as a series of nodes. So nodes are just going to be SketchUp geometry that basically we're going to replace. So what we've done is we've come in here and we've exported this whole model out to Lumion. Well, what we want to do is we want to take this group that contained all of our trees, we want to make that a component, and then we want to export that as its own model. So it's kind of a separate model import that we're going to use in order to have these locations in our 3D space. And so in order to do that, we're going to take our group of trees that we've created. So we've taken all of these trees, these individual trees, and we've put them inside of a group. And then we've right-clicked on this and we've clicked the button for Make Component. But we have this trees for export ready to export. Well, now we want to go up and we want to go to File, Export, 3D Model. And so for whatever reason, you should be able to export these as a SketchUp file, or you should be able to save this as a SketchUp file and then import that into Lumion, but I've been having some problems with that. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to save this as a Collada file, as that file seems to work a little bit better for the node replacement. So we're just going to take this and we're just going to name this something like trees for replacement. And then we want to go into our settings, or our options, and we want to make sure that we've checked the box for export only selection set, and we want to make sure that we have our trees for export selected when we do this. And so when we do this, this is only going to export what we have selected into its own model. So I'm just going to click OK, and I'm going to click export, and this is going to go in and this is going to export those trees. And so one other thing we want to do while we have live sync running is we also want to go in and hide this group of trees in our model. So live sync is running, so any changes we make inside of SketchUp are going to get made inside of Lumion as well. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off camera synchronization because that makes your computer run slower. But I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to right click on my trees group and I'm just going to click hide. So you can see how that gets hidden inside of your SketchUp model. Well, now if I go over into Lumion, you can see how because we hid that in our SketchUp model, those trees got hidden inside of Lumion as well. So you can see how the trees are no longer in here because we have live sync running and those changes are getting synced. And so what we want to do is we want to import our collada file. So in order to do that, we're just going to come over here to import, new model. We're going to go find our collada file. So in this case, it's the trees for replacement file. And it's going to ask us to add this to our library. And so what I usually do is I usually create a folder for node replacement imports. That way I don't have to worry about this sitting in with all of my other models that I'm actually using for import. So we're just going to place this in a folder called node replacement imports, and you can make that folder if you don't have it. And we're just going to call this, we can go ahead and leave it as trees for replacement. And we don't need to worry about animations, we don't need to worry about edges. And we're just going to click OK. And so when we click OK, what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to bring these tree models inside of Lumion. So you can see how I can move this around until I can place this just like this. So I'm just going to place this so that all my trees are in the planting beds. And then I'm going to click on this select button. And so if you look at this, and we're just going to go in here and we're going to double check that these are all on the ground. It looks like they are not right now. So we'll just use the move tool in order to move those up and down until they're on the ground. So we want to make sure that they're on the ground and also that they're as centered as, whoops. We want to make sure they're on the ground and we want to make sure they're as centered as we can get them inside our planting beds. And so now what we have in here is we have all of these different trees. Well, now what we want to do is we want to use what's known as node replacement. And node replacement just is a setting inside of Lumion where we can replace items or place items on the nodes that are in here. And this is going to treat every object that was inside that group as a node or as a point where we can place things. And so what I'm going to do in this particular situation is I'm going to select this group just by clicking on this little point right here, and then I'm going to come over here into my advanced options, and note that I'm using Lumion 9.5, so this might look a little bit different if you have a different version, but I'm just going to click on the button for place item on nodes. And so you can see how this tells me that my number of nodes is 32. Well, that's the number of tree objects that I had inside of my SketchUp model. And so what I'm going to do is we're placing 32 objects in here. I'm just going to go down to my nature settings and I'm just going to find a tree that I can place in here. And in this case, these trees probably don't need to be super big, so maybe I'm going to use one of these American beech trees or something like that. Well, you can see how when I click on the American beech tree, it's going to place 32 of those trees in the locations where our nodes were. And you can place different trees, so you can kind of mess around with this a little bit. You can see how probably super large trees is not going to be the best fit, but you can kind of play around with this until you get the look that you're going for. Maybe these little sycamores work pretty well as well, but there's a lot of different options for things that you can do with these trees. But it looks like these trees are going to work pretty well, so what we're going to do is we're just going to come in here and we're going to click the button for OK. And so when we click the button for OK, what that's going to do is that's going to finalize that placement of these trees. And so these trees are now in here and they're now placed on our planting beds inside of Lumion. One thing we might want to think about doing is we might want to think about kind of randomizing the size and rotation of those. And so in order to do that, what we can do is we can use select mode and we can click on nature. And I can just hold the control key and I can just select all of these trees by holding the control key and dragging across them. And then we can come over here into our advanced options, and you can see how there's a button in here for randomize size. And I'm going to come to zoom in so you can see what's happening here. But if you don't want these trees to all be uniform and the exact same size, you can click the button for randomize size, and this will go through and this will randomize the size of your trees for all of the different trees that you have selected. You can also click the button for randomize rotation in order to randomize that. I would not recommend clicking the randomize position because it'll just kind of put your trees all over the place. But you can use this to kind of adjust this until you get a look that you like with your trees inside of your planting beds. So like I said, this is a great method for models like this one where you have trees that have to go in a specific location. I would say if you're looking to just randomly place trees or create forests or something like that, maybe this isn't the best way to do that because Lumion has a great tool set for that already. But this can be a big time saver compared to having to go through, especially if you have like a couple hundred trees or something like that, having to do all this manually. But leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Did you find this helpful? Have you used this method? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new rendering content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.